My name is Elena, and I am in my early 40s. Recently, I married my husband, Daniel. Daniel has a son, Ethan, from a previous marriage. Ethan, now in his early 20s, is an intelligent and respectful young man. He moved in with us to pursue his studies and has seamlessly adapted to our blended family. While adjusting to this new dynamic has had its challenges, we've gradually grown closer and built strong bonds. Today, I want to recount a memorable story, an ordinary day that became unforgettable. One bright Saturday morning, Daniel left early for a weekend work trip, leaving Ethan and me alone for the next couple of days. I decided to play my favorite playlist and tackle some household chores. Sunlight streamed through the windows, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere, perfect for organizing. I chose a casual outfit, a lightweight tank top, and a knee-length skirt, ideal for comfort and ease of movement during cleaning. Knowing Ethan usually slept late on weekends, I assumed I had a few hours before he'd wake up. Lost in the music, I worked my way through the living room, dusting shelves and wiping surfaces, unaware I was being observed. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. Turning around, I found Ethan leaning casually against the doorway, his expression unfamiliar, a mix of curiosity and surprise. "Good morning, Ethan," I greeted him warmly, smiling despite a slight pang of self-consciousness. He blinked, as if snapping out of a reverie, and managed a faint smile in return. "Morning," he murmured, though his gaze lingered a moment longer than expected, scanning the room before settling on me. It seemed he wanted to say something but remained silent, merely observing as I resumed my tasks. I could feel his attention following me, though I couldn't decipher his thoughts. The stillness of the house, combined with the soft morning light, gave the moment a distinct quality, almost as if we were in a world of our own. As I dusted the upper shelves, I noticed Ethan had moved slightly closer, watching me with an intensity I hadn't seen before. My cheeks warmed under his gaze, but I kept my tone light, making small talk to ease the silence. We chatted briefly about his studies and weekend plans, but his answers were distracted, his mind seemingly elsewhere. While adjusting a photo frame on a high shelf, I stretched upward, causing my skirt to rise slightly. Turning my head, I caught Ethan's widened eyes before he quickly averted them. The reaction sent an unexpected thrill through me, a feeling I couldn't quite place or ignore. As I stretched to adjust a picture frame, I miscalculated my balance and wavered briefly. Before I could steady myself, firm hands gently caught my waist, supporting me until I regained stability. I turned to find Ethan behind me, his touch both delicate and steady. Our eyes met, locking in a moment of mutual surprise and unspoken recognition. "It's okay," he murmured, his voice low and slightly unsteady, as if he felt just as unbalanced as I did. His hands lingered a moment longer than expected before he stepped back, creating an electrified tension in the space between us. The ordinary morning seemed to shift, taking on a complexity I hadn't anticipated. Ethan stayed close for the rest of the morning, offering to help with the cleaning. His presence felt different, his hand occasionally brushing against mine as we worked. Every accidental touch, every glance exchanged, seemed to deepen the unspoken connection forming between us. By the time we finished organizing, the house felt transformed, not just tidier, but imbued with a strange, charged energy. "Let's take a break," I suggested, and we settled on the couch with glasses of iced coffee. The usual light-hearted banter between us was absent, replaced by a contemplative quiet. Ethan's focus rested on me, his gaze steady yet gentle, as though he wanted to communicate something words couldn't capture. "Do you enjoy these slow Saturdays?" I asked, breaking the silence with a soft smile. I hoped to ease the tension hanging between us. He nodded, his response thoughtful. "I do. It's nice to spend time like this, just the two of us." His words made my heart skip a beat. There was something in his tone, a sincerity that felt deeper than a typical familial exchange. I smiled back, aware of the subtle intensity in his expression. "It's nice having company," I replied, my voice quieter than I intended. "This house can feel so big sometimes." Until that moment, I hadn't realized how true those words were. Without Daniel's usual presence, the house felt different. Quieter, more open, and filled with an unexpected closeness between Ethan and me. Ethan's gaze lingered on mine for a moment, his eyes searching. "You're right," he said finally. "Today feels different." There was a slight hesitation in his tone, as if he were carefully choosing his words. Then his expression softened. It feels like we're really spending time together, not just living in the same space. His statement resonated, stirring something within me. My pulse quickened at the warmth in his voice, and for a moment, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of us. The usual boundaries between us felt blurred, as though we were discovering each other in a way we hadn't before. As we sat, sipping our coffee, each shared glance seemed to spark something unspoken. At one point, I leaned back, resting my arm on the couch. My hand grazed his shoulder, a small, inadvertent touch, yet it carried an intensity that neither of us could ignore. Ethan froze briefly, clearly as aware of the moment as I was. Our eyes met, and I felt a mischievous smile tug at my lips. "You're awfully quiet today," I teased, attempting to lighten the atmosphere. "Have I finally rendered you speechless?" He laughed softly, his eyes brightening with a hint of playfulness. "Maybe," he admitted, his tone warm yet slightly hesitant. Despite the lighthearted exchange, the proximity between us felt palpable, as though the usual barriers separating us had dissolved, leaving a connection that was both exhilarating and unnerving. "Perhaps," Ethan replied, his tone light yet unable to mask the underlying intensity. "Or maybe I'm just seeing you in a different light today." His words lingered in the air, and I felt a warmth rise in my cheeks. I wanted to dismiss it with a laugh, but instead, I found myself gazing at him. My pulse quickened as I met his eyes, discovering a tenderness that left me momentarily breathless. Almost reflexively, I reached up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear, an anxious habit I couldn't seem to shake. Ethan's gaze followed the motion, and before I could fully process it, he extended his hand, his fingers brushing mine as he clasped my hand briefly. We stayed that way, his hand warm over mine, and the simple touch carried a deeper meaning, an unspoken acknowledgement that we were stepping into uncharted territory. A mix of anticipation and comfort settled over me, as if this was exactly where we were meant to be. "Elena," he murmured, my name barely audible, but charged with meaning. The sound of it sent a pleasant shiver through me, drawing me closer to him, captivated by the intimacy of the moment and the warmth we shared. "Yes, Ethan," I replied softly, my voice betraying the swirl of unspoken emotions within me. He hesitated, his gaze searching mine as if gathering the courage to continue. "I've wanted to tell you this for some time." My heart raced under the weight of his words, and I couldn't look away. I could feel the unspoken emotions between us, and instinctively I gave his hand a gentle squeeze. "You can tell me anything," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. He inhaled deeply, his eyes never leaving mine. "You mean more to me than I can possibly express," he said, his tone low and earnest. "Seeing you like this, being here with you, it's made me realize just how deeply I feel." A soft smile spread across my face as my heart swelled, my defenses crumbling in the warmth of his confession. "I feel the same, Ethan. This connection between us, I can't ignore it." The words escaped before I could second guess them, and as they hung in the air, I felt an unexpected relief, a liberation in admitting the truth. Ethan moved closer, his face mere inches from mine, his hands still holding mine firmly yet gently. "I've wanted to be close to you for so long," he murmured, his voice filled with sincerity. "I don't want this moment to end." It was as though the world around us faded away, leaving only the raw honesty of our emotions. As if guided by an unseen force, I leaned in, resting a hand on his shoulder, my heart racing as our faces drew closer. And then, tenderly, his lips met mine. The kiss was gentle, imbued with the emotions we had both kept hidden for so long. It spoke of shared understanding, unspoken words, and an undeniable bond that had been building between us. Ethan's fingers intertwined with mine, as if reluctant to let go, the solace of his touch grounding me. The outside world felt distant and insignificant, replaced by the quiet harmony of our shared heartbeat. My free hand rested on his, and I could feel the steady rhythm of his pulse beneath my fingertips, a silent reflection of the connection we now shared. In that moment, I realized the depth of our feelings for one another. Everything felt natural, as though we were always meant to reach this place of understanding and closeness. Slowly, he raised his hand, the tenderness in his gesture mirroring the profound emotions that had drawn us together. Ethan's hand brushed a stray strand of hair from my face, the gesture simple yet filled with unspoken care. I leaned into his touch, feeling a warmth unlike anything I had experienced in years. Elena, he whispered, my name imbued with profound emotion. His voice trembled slightly, betraying his own overwhelm at the connection between us. Yes, I replied softly, meeting his gaze. My heart raced as I waited for his next words, my breath catching in anticipation. It feels like this has been waiting to happen for so long, he said, his tone gentle yet sincere. I know it's complicated, and I don't want to rush anything, but I need you to know how much I care for you, how significant you are to me. His words washed over me, filling my heart with an inexplicable warmth. I clasped his hand in response, feeling the reassuring heat of his palm. I feel the same way, Ethan, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't expecting this, but it feels right. We sat in the soft glow of the living room, a shared understanding passing between us without need for words. His hand remained in mine as we stood, the quiet anticipation between us growing with each step down the hallway. The distant murmur of the evening outside faded, replaced by the sound of our breaths and the pounding of my heart as we neared the bedroom. The soft light from the street outside filtered in, casting a gentle glow over the space. It felt different, cozy, intimate. Ethan's fingers grazed my arm, sending a pleasant shiver through me. As I sat on the edge of the bed, he knelt beside me, his gaze unwavering and filled with a tender intensity that took my breath away. Elena, he said softly, his voice heavy with emotion. I've never felt this way about anyone before. My heartbeat quickened as I placed a hand on his cheek, the warmth of his skin grounding me. For a moment, we simply stared at each other, foreheads resting together, breaths mingling. It felt as though every moment in our lives had led to this serene, perfect connection. Slowly, he leaned in, and our lips met in a kiss that was unhurried, tender, and charged with all the emotions we had kept hidden. His hands found my waist, warm and firm, as I drew him closer. The world beyond the bedroom ceased to exist. It was just the two of us, caught in a moment we couldn't deny. But then, the sound of the front door unlocking shattered the quiet, and my heart leapt into my throat. Daniel was home. Panic flashed in Ethan's eyes as we broke apart, hands shaking as we tried to regain our composure. I quickly smoothed my hair and adjusted my clothes, glancing around the room as though searching for a way to erase the evidence of what had just happened. I gestured for Ethan to step back, my pulse racing as I opened the bedroom door and stepped into the hallway, striving for calm. Daniel's footsteps echoed closer, his cheerful voice calling my name. I forced a steady reply, meeting him with a smile and a quick hug as he recounted his day, blissfully unaware of the turmoil that had unfolded moments before. From the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan retreat to the living room, his expression as unsettled as mine. The connection we had shared moments earlier was now overshadowed by a heavy sense of secrecy. In the days that followed, a tumult of emotions swirled within me, excitement, guilt, and confusion vying for dominance. Ethan and I maintained a careful distance, yet the unspoken bond between us lingered beneath the surface, hidden but undeniable. One afternoon, as I organized the house, Ethan approached me with a solemn yet composed expression. He hesitated briefly before speaking, his voice soft. I think we were caught in a moment, he said. Maybe it was something we both needed, but perhaps it doesn't have to go any further. His words grounded me, offering clarity. You're right, I replied gently. I value you, Ethan, but I can't risk jeopardizing the family we both care about. Maybe we should treasure the memory and focus on moving forward. Relief softened his features, and we shared a smile of mutual understanding. There was no tension, no regret, only a shared recognition of the significance of what had passed between us. From that moment on, things began to return to normal. We laughed, shared conversations, and resumed the rhythms of family life, but with a newfound respect for each other. The bond we had formed remained, subtly woven into the fabric of our lives. As time passed, I reflected on that chapter with gratitude, not for what might have been, but for the insight it had given me into myself, my relationships, and the beauty of the connections we build. The experience had strengthened our family, deepening the love and support that surrounded us.